Riot Games is making a live-action show. How do I know that information, and more importantly, what is it about? For some people, it is important to also know if this show has any tie-ins with Arcane. Well, I believe there is a possibility for Jinx to be introduced in live action. I also understand that for some, the idea of live action isn't a good one, but since Riot Games already opened a live action studio, I think it's important to have a bit of context. Last year, Riot Games announced the opening of 2 studios, and one of them is for live action, led by Brian Wright. He was a producer on Stranger Things and on Arcane. After the release of the 2nd season of Arcane, during a live stream discussion between Necrit and Christian Linke, the co-creator of Arcane, he mentioned that they are exploring multiple regions, and among them, Noxus, Ionia, and Demacia. Later on, in another interview on Twitter with SpiderX, Christian Linke mentioned Bilgewater in addition to those 3 regions. He also talked about focusing on the next stories and how they've been focusing on them for months and in some cases for years. He ends up saying that these are all regions they are heavily investing in. This year, Riot Games Global Production Director Rose Lam was part of a working session with the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism from Vietnam, where she mentioned that they are planning on filming a 9-episode TV series based on League of Legends. I think it is also important to mention that she was the executive producer of The Last of Us among a full list of other projects. According to her, Riot surveyed many countries in Asia, among them Japan, Korea and Thailand, but in the end chose Vietnam and more specifically an island. Now, when you hear all of these countries, you're probably thinking that they are going for Ionia, and well, it may very well be the case in the end. However, if you look at the island in question, you will see that it looks very similar to Bilgewater. At the same time, you need to consider that for Bilgewater, you wouldn't need as much CGI in comparison to something like Ionia and the characters who are part of that zone. If Bilgewater is going to be the zone that they want to adapt, I think it's also important to understand it, and for that, we have the League of Legends description on their official website. Nestled away in the Blue Flame Isle archipelago, Bilgewater is a port city like no other, home to serpent hunters, dog gangs, and smugglers from across the known world. Here, fortunes are made and ambitions shattered in the blink of an eye. For those fleeing justice, debt, or persecution, Bilgewater can be a place of new beginnings, for no one on these twisted streets cares about your past. Even so, with each new dawn, careless travelers can always be found floating in the harbor, their purses empty and their throats slit. While incredibly dangerous, Bilgewater is ripe with opportunity, free from the shackles of formal government and trade regulation. If you have the coin, almost anything can be purchased here, from outlawed hextech to the favor of local crime lords. With the recent removal of the last River King of Bilgewater, the city has entered a period of transition while the most prominent captains try to agree on its future. But as long as there are seaworthy ships and crews to sail them, Bilgewater is likely to remain one of the most colorful and well-connected places in Runeterra. I do believe that they will change some things, similar to what they did for Arcane, and I think those changes will mostly be related to the champions, although I could be wrong. With the story of this region, I think it's pretty straightforward. There are no good people, necessarily. All of them are either pirates, bounty hunters, people from all over the world in one place. And the thing is, I believe they will have to go for the story of Gangplank. He is the River King of Bilgewater, and they can showcase the fall of the king. Not only that, but he is also connected with all of these characters one way or the other. With Misfortune, he murdered her family. With Illaoi, they were together. With Graves and Twisted Fate, well, he tortured them. When it comes to the sea monsters, those are characters who will not appear every single episode, but maybe pop up every once in a while. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, why did I say in the beginning of the video that there is a possibility for Jinx to be part of a live action project and one related to Bilgewater specifically? Well, As we all know by now, Jinx is alive, she left Piltover and Zone, and they are exploring Noxus, Ionia, Demacia, and Bilgewater. The question is, why would she choose Bilgewater out of all of these regions, and the other one, why would she be part of any future Arcane spin-offs or any future shows? The thing is, she is far too important of a character to simply live out forever, and she is well loved by all the people who watched Arcane. It is in their interest to add her back at one point in the future, and especially if it makes a lot of sense. This is tied into the response of the first question, why Bilgewater? In the past, they wanted to send Powder to Bilgewater. Yes, in the story of Arcane, in episode 3 of season 1, she was supposed to go to Bilgewater and then return in episode 4 as you see her right now in Arcane, with that outfit being Jinx, right? So if they wanted that to be the story in the past, maybe they can still do something similar in the future, where after she left Piltover and Zone, she left to go to Bilgewater. That's the story, that's the idea, and that's why I think it can happen. Am I convinced that this is going to happen the way I described it? Well, no, because I'm not part of the lore team yet. I just think that out of all the possible speculations for this character in particular, this one has the most arguments in favor of it. I think I should also go through the other option I mentioned in this video. Yes, Ionia. Don't worry, I'm not gonna go through the entire description of this region from League of Legends. I do not believe it is the region they are making a show about. Again, I could be wrong, but at the same time, we do not have a lot of information. Maybe this is only the first location they are filming in, and then later on they will move on to another location, which gives us the insight we need to understand that yes, this is a show about Ionia. And when that happens, I will make a separate video for that. Right now, however, I can only echo what I previously mentioned. The show being very expensive if it was about Ionia, and this location they are filming in looking very similar to Bilgewater. What if I was wrong? What if they are actually going for Ionia? I think the first season would be a setup for the characters and the locations, right? I do not believe that they will go for the war between Noxus and Ionia, or at least not in the first season, unless they simply want to go for a regional story, maybe the story of an individual character. Ultimately, they can do whatever they want, it is up to them to tell the story they want to tell, not necessarily what I mentioned and what I theorized about. I hope it is going to be a great story, and now, with all of that being said, you can tell me your own opinion in the comment section.